Hello, hello there. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Mr. Rands.
Okay. Oh, yeah. How are you?
Hi, Mr. Rands. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How are you today?
I'm great, and you?
Okay, I think we can go. Hello and welcome to Creative Cut Talks, everyone, the show that aims to promote sustainable visual arts and to bridge the gap between art creators and consumers. So today we're joined by a very special guest. And to lay a foundation for this, I'd like to say I, for one, have wondered if artists not paying tax, that is, if they're not paying it, is one of the reasons we are perhaps forgotten and why nobody seems to acknowledge the contribution of visual artists to the creative economy. Those are my thoughts, but what are the statistics? That is why today I'm joined by a dynamic tax expert with over 7 years of progressive experience in leading and guiding tax teams in the delivery of tax advisory services across a range of complex tax related matters. A proficient tax trainer who in fact trains consultants and organizations both locally and regionally. Mr. Tumelo Rannau from the Tax platform is joining us today. Mr. Rans, over to you.
Thank you.
By the way, as we progress, I see people have joined us. As we progress, feel free to ask questions to so that Mr. Rannau can also address them. Share your comments as well and let us know how it's going. Now, Mr. Rans, to lay a foundation for today's matter, are visual artists meant to pay tax? And what are the terms and conditions, if any?
Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be here with you today. I think it depends really, because on you as a visual artist, either you take yourself as a professional or you take your artistry as a business or just as a hobby. So if you take the artistry just as a hobby, then you are not expected to pay tax because you are doing it just for fun. So in fact, you are not pursuing any income from that trade. But then when you now see it as a profession and a business, that's now when we can start talking about tax when it comes to visual artists. Going into the terms and conditions, it's whether you do it as an individual or as a company. So when you do it as a company, the rate will apply at 22%. And if you are an individual, the rate will start from 5% going to 25%, depending that on the income that you have or that you will have made from your trade.
Okay. Mr. Renz, I think the net is losing us a bit, so you're not very visible. But I think I can hear you as far as we continue. I don't know whether you can hear us clearly.
Yeah, I think I keep on losing you, but for now I can hear you clearly.
Okay. So you're saying basically as a company, so that there's a visual artist who comes in as a company will pay tax differently from one who who comes as an individual. Is that correct? Did I get
Yes,
that right?
yes.
So now in a situation where, for example, I, Chawa, as a visual artist, have a separate company under which I don't like my art is not under the same company. So what happens there? Do I still pay tax as an individual, or I pay it as a company? So, or in essence, there's a tax, there's company tax, and then there's artist tax.
Well, if you choose to be separate from the company doing a
Uh-huh.
different trade, and then as an individual, you are focusing just on the art. Then when it comes to the art business, you pay tax as an individual. But if you transfer that
Okay.
business now operating under the company, you will pay tax as a company. So it's
And
generally every business pays tax. So there's no tax for artists and for other industries. Every business, whether it's operated as an individual or as a company, will pay tax at some point.
so So now there's also the aspect where you say where you do it as a hobby and when you do it as a business. So are there any particular, like thresholds where we'd say, no, here it's just a hobby, even if you sell to one or two people, it's a hobby, but here it's a business? Because what usually, I'm asking this because we have those artists that, for example, will sell one or two artworks per annum, and then one that would sell on a regular basis, but they still say, I'm not a full-time artist. For example, such artists would be artists that have a day job, like myself. I have a job where I work, but time and again I would sell. Does this still mean I'm doing it as a hobby, or I'm doing it as a company, or rather
Well,
as a practicing or a selling artist?
when assessing whether you are actually into business or you are just doing it as a hobby, we are going to look at, do you regularly do the selling? Do you
Uh-huh.
habitually advertise your products to say, this is my at this price? So yeah, those are the things that you look at it when you habitually advertise and sell and the products are available in the market. Because when you do it as a hobby, normally you won't avail for those in the market because you are just doing it because you enjoy doing it. But when you start marketing the product, then you will know that no, you're actually doing this as
Now
a
you're
business
doing it
than as a hobby.
for business. Understood. Now, in
Yes.
your experience, that having been said, we have artists that we know that actually market their artworks. In your local and regional experience, do these artists actually pay tax, or even pay tax correctly?
Well, some do, some don't. But I think going back to just our culture, how we are raised, because normally when we grow up, artistry, whether it's painting, or whether it's music, whatever form of artistry that you do, normally it's not taken as a business. But and it's not taken as a profession, whether by your relatives, by your
Mm-hmm.
parents. They'll start asking you, when are you getting a job? So because of that, it
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
creates a misconception that is not a business and you should not account for tax on that income that you are earning, while in fact you are supposed to account for that. So because of that misconception, some will not pay tax. But for those that have a support system or have knowledge about these things, they do pay, and they do pay correctly. So it just depends on whether you have a support system, those who can help you in accounting for that, and also any misconceptions that you have are clear. So if the misconceptions are not cleared, obviously you will not pay tax because you are saying, look, I have a day job and this is just a hobby for me. But while in fact habitually you are marketing that product and you are selling it and earning income from it. And sometimes the income that you are earning from that is even more than your day job. So really, it depends on whether you are learned when it comes to tax issues or you
Methods of
just have the
tax, yes.
misconception that because it's just art, it's just a skill, then I don't have to pay tax on this.
Mm. That is so now basically if I hear you right, in summary, you're saying there and there artists do pay, but generally there's a misconception that it's not serious, so therefore there's no need to
Yeah,
pay
yeah.
tax.
Yes,
So now
yes. It's even more
ex-
like in sports, whether it's football,
mm,
whether it's athletics. Yeah, people don't see it as a profession. So because they don't see it as a profession, then they forget about these things. Just globally, if you look at sports people and artists, normally they will be chased by the tax authority. Is because they haven't accounted for taxes from some of the income that they received. Because if you are a professional and you are hired by a company that has hired you will deduct tax. But if you are an artist, most you
yeah.
work for yourself. So the income comes straight to you from whoever you are providing services to. So there is no advance tax taken from you. So then that's
Okay.
where now it becomes
Mr.
a
Renz.
problem because you use those funds and then you are not going to be able to account for that.
Okay. Mr. Renz, I think kana Setswana said this I'm missing a lot from your expressions. So I don't know if you are able to, just get do you see me clearly? Because I can't see you clearly.
You can't see me clearly. I can see you clearly.
No, it's showery and I don't know if the audience does see you clearly, but I'm not. So I feel like I'm
Okay.
losing out a lot. It's so showery and blurry. So I'm losing the element
Yeah, I think they
Yamaha.
can they can confirm for us because for me my camera shows that I have good lighting. Unless maybe
Semi, I Semi is saying, I hope I'm not late. Semi, can you see Mr. Renz?
because maybe I can reduce the lighting.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's an issue of blur. But nonetheless, we can just
Uh,
continue because you're pretty, very, very well audible. Um,
oh, okay.
so, yeah, so Semi is also
Oh, she
saying
says
she
she
can't
can.
see. Yes.
I've reduced lighting. So I don't is it better?
Eh, it was better for a second.
How is it?
Not yet there, but I think we can, for the sake of, we can continue. So besides,
Okay.
I understand we're talking about tax, in terms of, yes, we pay tax, whatnot, but in essence,
Yeah.
what is the reason for paying tax beside national development and projects, etc.? What's now I can see you. What's in it for
Oh,
a taxpayer?
well, primarily, like you say, for national development, tax is just the revenue for the government. It's a source of funds. Yes. So we can then say, yes, it's a source of funds for the government, but then there are different taxes that you will pay. So like your training levy and your CITF levy, those are basically more on the education side, where as a company you
Mm,
educate people or you train people, then you are able to claim from that. It helps in facilitating that. So it can be for educational purposes. Then you have your CITF levy that is normally paid by construction companies. So it supports the CITF where artisans are trained. So basically it's to support the construction industry. Then you will have your sugar levy. That's for controlling consumption of sugar such that people are encouraged to eat healthy. Then there is your alcohol levy, basically to control alcohol consumption. Well, there may be arguments whether levies that relate to consumption really work, but basically
Yeah.
those are the reasons that they will advance when they introduce such levies. So it's for control consumption of certain items, encourage your education such as the CITF and the training levy, and of course the basic thing is it's a source of fund. We can come up with all these reasons, but principally really it's a source of fund for the government.
And then the bottom line.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Now,
Yeah.
now, when I started, I did say for some time I had been wondering. Yay! I can see you clearly. I'd been wondering if perhaps because our industry doesn't pay. A lot of people are said not to pay tax. Is it the reason perhaps why we're not taken seriously, or our contribution to the creative economy is not seen?
Well,
Is it
it's
possibly one of the
like I
reasons?
think like I said earlier, it's because it's seen not as a profession
Mm-hmm.
generally in Botswana. So when you are into arts, it's seen as more as a hobby than as a profession or as a business. I think now it's now that we are talking about the creative industry as a profession and as a business, where we can tap and it can help in advancing our economy. I think now that we are having that conversation of having the creative industry as part of the economy and contributing to the economy, now that's when we'll start taking it serious. But now it's generally because yes, it's not seen as a profession. It's seen that something that you pass time by. When you are not working, then you can do it. But I think going forward, visual arts will be taken serious, and then of course it will contribute to the economy through taxes. It will create employment and all other those things that comes with supporting the industry.
Okay, let me take you a bit back. You spoke about percentages for a visual artist and percentages for a company. May you please, for the sake of those that joined in a bit later, reiterate those amounts? What is the percentage of a company and what is the percentage of the artist?
Okay, it will be the company and individual. That's normally the difference.
Oh,
That's the
okay, individual.
difference. So for
Yeah.
individuals, it will range from 5% to 25%, depending on the income. So as the income
Uh,
goes, the percentages go up. Then when it comes to a company, it's just a basic rate of 22%, regardless of how much you've made. So that's the difference.
so
And
again,
I
once more,
think
that means
I should also add that it's not on the gross income. When we mean gross income, we are saying what you actually receive as a payment. For example, if you have drawn something for someone, then they pay you. That's the income part. But we have incurred expenses. You have bought paper, you have bought pencils, and all those other things. So you calculate your profit first before you can actually apply the tax rate to say this is the income that I've made from my trade uh, of drawing or whatever art that you are into. So it's on the profit end. So as a business, whether you are operating as an individual, as a company, that's where now documentation becomes important. So you need to document how much you are receiving. You need to document what you are spending to get the equipment that you use and everything else that you use, the expenses that you incur for your business. If you are meeting a client, the expenses that you incur at that meeting. If you have a laptop, the expenses that you incur in that laptop. If you have a car and you run around in relation to the business, the expenses that you incur in relation to that business. So you need to document those because they're very important when now it comes to accounting for your taxes. Because
For
if
your
you don't
taxes.
document, then you will end up paying higher taxes than you're supposed to pay, because you only pay on the income.
Understood. Understood. Just on
Yeah.
that note, for those that are perhaps interested in how individuals can price their artworks, in one of our highlights on our Instagram page, you can see a pricing guide. So from the pricing guide, you actually deduce how much you made in profit, and that is what is taxable. On to the next question, Mr. Renz. You gave an example with of for example, sports people. We know that some prominent sportsmen and business people, after some years of practice, they then get followed or chased by the taxman.
Yeah.
What would have happened in such instances?
Yes. So normally for those, it's they will have outside the football club they're playing for, they'll have
Uh-huh.
sponsorship deals for
Uh,
clothes and all these other items. So that one is a direct payment. No advance tax is paid from that. So they then have to account for those through their managers or their accountants or tax consultant. So now,
mm,
because they think that they've paid tax on their salary, they don't pay on this side deals that they have. So that's where then the problems comes in, because they have not accounted for the other income that they are earning apart from that they are playing football or they are playing basketball. Because they will normally get endorsement deals, whether from football boots or whatever merchandise that normally they have to endorse. So
I got you.
that's where the
So let's
problem
take
comes in. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's take it back to visual artists. I mean, some visual artists, firstly, like I said, have jobs where tax would be deducted there, and then they actively
Yes.
advertise and actively sell. And then sometimes, depending on how their social media pages perform, then they'll now have deals from your different corporates and entities, maybe to influence certain things and what have you. Do you reckon
Yes.
something similar to what we see with those, footballers and business people that we see, could also affect such artists?
Yeah. Yes. It will at some point, because now
Mm-hmm.
the Revenue Authority has this risk analysis metrics that they do. Maybe they will read from a
Mm-hmm.
newspaper that you have signed a deal with so and so. So that they'll profile that, and when it comes to filing, they'll look at your
Mm-hmm.
return to check if indeed you have included that income. Then if you have not included that income, then they can say, we remember reading from such and such a paper or seeing on TV that you have won this deal, but we don't see such income in your return. So what
Mm-hmm.
happened? Because another thing is that they have access to your bank accounts. They can actually request your banker to give them statements to see what else you are earning as part of their investigations. Because there's what you call lifestyle audits. So if you are doing any other job aside from your employment and you don't account for that, at some point you might have to account for that. It's similar to what happens to people who do rental or have rental income.
Yes, yes, yes.
Eh, yes, yes. So you are a landlord and you are working also. So someone, when they fill their return, they will say, I'm renting 2 beds from Chawa, it's 3,000. But when Chawa then submits a return, doesn't include the rental. They'll then
Mm-hmm.
use what your tenant has submitted to calculate the tax that you are owing, and they'll just give you an assessment, which is basically to show you what you are owing and say, look, you didn't declare this, but we know that you are earning this, kindly pay. So it will be the same thing if you are a visual artist and you have a full-time job and you are doing visual artistry, any income from there and not accounting for that income.
Not accounting for that. Not accounting for that.
Mm,
Mm,
mm. So
mm,
it is
mm, mm.
important
So
to
now
account
assuming,
for the income.
okay. Now, Mr. Renz,
Yeah.
assuming there are artists who have been practicing for years and not paying tax and earning a lot. And like
Yes.
you're saying, they have access to the bank details, they have access to transactions. And some artists are in fact actually contracted by different entities, including government entities, corporates, etc. And then we
Yes.
have those
Yes.
artists that in fact have day jobs and are taxable and pay their taxes there and do not declare or file taxes for their arts, who in fact also get these deals that are similar to those of full-time artists and haven't been paying tax this time. So
Yeah.
what do we do? Do we then wait for the taxman to attack, or we go back and say, but Kelewenu, I've been practicing for the past 23 years and not paying tax, and how does it work? What do we do?
Um, so it's simple. You can do what you call a voluntary disclosure to them to say, look, I've been earning this and I haven't been declaring. I now want to declare. And then you can get into a
Mm-hmm.
payment plan with them. Yes. So when you do a voluntary declaration and you agree a
Mm-hmm.
payment plan, then it's easier to get write-offs in terms of the penalties and the interest that would have accrued from non-payment of that tax. But when now they are the ones that come to you, it may be
Mm-hmm.
difficult for the penalties and the interest to be waived. So it's always
Sure.
good for you to go
So,
to them than for them to come chasing you. Because the reason why it will be difficult to waive the penalties and the interest is because they'll say to you, look, we've spent petrol chasing you, we spent this resources chasing you. So they then need to recover from you what they've spent and they won't waive the interest and the penalty. It will be difficult for them to waive those. So if you go to them and you are cooperative, then it will be easy for them to assist you to pay because you are a willing taxpayer. You have admitted that you've made a
mhm.
mistake and you want them to assist you.
I
Yeah.
think this is something that would be we're grateful to learn this from you, Mr. Renz. Now, when you are an employee, there's a minimum amount that is taxable. Even companies, I understand they have a minimum amount. Is that the case also? I guess anyway, we said artists are individuals. So does that, am I correct to, from what I'm understanding, to say that means if an artist makes now 40,000, less than 40,000 from their art, then they're not taxable. And therefore there's no need to declare, or they still need to declare. How does that work? And then
Oh
a
yes,
company,
when
is
it
it
comes to
100,000?
individuals, yeah, when it comes to individuals, there is a threshold. So the same threshold that applied to someone who is an employee in a company will also apply when you do business as an
To an artist.
individual, regardless of whether you are an artist or whatever trade that you are in. So the same threshold will apply.
Mhm.
Currently, that's 48,000, the annual amount,
Oh, 14.
which is around 4,000,
Uh-huh.
which is around 4,000 per month.
Mhm.
Yes, and I think I should
48,000.
clarify
And
this. Yes, I should clarify this because it often causes confusion. When you talk of the 48,000, you are talking of the aggregate income from all sources of income that we have and not to a particular or a single source of income. So there's often that confusion that, if I'm earning 3,000 from employment and I'm earning 3,000 from another source, it means I'm exempt. It means that it applies for each individual source of income, but it applies to the aggregate and not just one source of income.
Hey.
So if you are doing more than 48 from two sources, it means you have to account for tax on those two sources of income. Yes. And then moving on to companies. When it comes to companies, no threshold. The first one puller is taxable.
Mr. Renz, I'm losing you.
Are we still?
Uh-oh. Mr. Renz?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
I can hear you clearly.
Hear you. I can hear you now.
Yes,
I
yes.
lost you at the first one, Ula.
Oh, yes. I was saying when it comes to companies, you are taxable on the first one pool. So for companies, there is no threshold. Yes. And remember, when we talk about this for businesses, both individual and companies, we are not talking about the income, but the profits.
Okay.
Yes.
Understandable. So now, Mr. Rans, I'm going to come to the tricky part. Being in the industry and understanding how the industry works, maybe I can lay a bit of foundation for your understanding, as well as the understanding of perhaps the non-artists or the aspiring artists that are here with us. So what usually happens in the market is I get my material at a certain amount, I get my brushes, and then I come and paint. And then maybe I put on, Facebook, whatever platform, or just word of mouth, or put on the side of the road, etc. And people will start buying my art, whatever, craft that I'm doing. And the currently the market is such that sometimes there are no receipts, sometimes there's no documentation, sometimes there's absolutely nothing. And then once in a while now you will get maybe a public art project, then you're invited to this project. Maybe that one time is when the contracting or body, or the government, if that's the government contracting, or the corporate, if it's a corporate contracting, they'll now give you a paper. So maybe usually what happens is that in a year you will only have something on paper from such entities, and from your individual clients you hardly get that. And then you get a true story, a lot of artists don't even have a bank accounts. So it's an issue of cash, your other mobile money platforms. So in such cases, Mr. Renz, how would you advise we approach it, and what should be done in such instances?
Yes. I think now that there is this conversation of the creative industry being the future diamonds, then we can start talking about issues of capacitation. Train the artist on bookkeeping, on accounting, on tax, so that they can be able to account for that. I think when the CEDA guidelines were launched, I think artists were among the people that were favored to say they can get money from CEDA and they can use their work as security. But then if you don't have certain things in place to comply with their guidelines, then you will fail to get assistance from them. So it's just as an industry to capacitate yourselves learn about your bookkeeping, learn about accounting, learn about tax. And I think also work hand in hand with people like Leah for capacitation. They can help in capacitating artists when it comes to your bookkeeping issues and accounting, and ultimately you being able to pay your tax. So I think that's my advice, because
Okay.
without complying on certain items, it will be difficult for you to get access to funding.
Yeah, I like the fact that you're using the term complying, because for the longest time I used to wonder, you know, these are very, very powerful talents, like very, very amazing talents. And like you're saying,
Yeah,
moving the creative industry to being the new diamond. But in as far as issues of compliance, I always wondered, but is this compliant? You know, so I'm guessing the whole issue of capacitating is something that is very important and is something that we have to explore as creative practitioners. Just
yeah,
Deb or Tap, Are, nice one, Mr. Rans. Thank you very much for that,
thank you so much.
Mr. Rans. Kana your workshops generally hela are not, just in J. So thank you very much for dishing out quite a lot with for us today. Hopefully we'll have you now on a platform where you'll be engaging us step by step, and maybe helping us
Yeah,
also in the
yeah.
capacitation. But in conclusion,
Okay.
share anything that can bridge that gap between art creators and consumers, or maybe artists and text matters. Just that one thing that you'd like to share with the audience today.
Yes, I think talking of bridging the gap between consumers and artists, I think also we have a duty as artists to teach us to appreciate these things, because the way we've been growing up is that we take these things just as a hobby.
Yeah.
It's just to, yeah, just as a hobby and nothing else. And even though arts is done at school, it still hasn't really uh, come into our minds that this is actually a trade that someone can make a living out of. And then we need to appreciate that and its importance. So I think you need to engage us from that aspect, build that culture such that we can really appreciate your work and understand that it is same as what I'm doing in text. Is
Yes.
this because doing text is a skill, is a skill set, and drawing is a skill, or painting is a skill set. So you need to bridge that gap as artists, for us to appreciate you and what you are doing, and not just appreciate it, but help you in reaching the market and competing at a global scale.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Rans. We will indeed continue pushing. The aim of Creative Cut really is to bridge that gap. And in terms of, what you just requested, our services really and our platform is to just sensitize everybody of the importance and the value of arts in the society we live in. I asked somebody a question yesterday, and I said, imagine throughout the pandemic there were no billboards, or there were no signages, there were no illustrations to guide us in as far as COVID protocols are concerned. And that is in fact the value of visual arts. So yes, we will indeed do more as Creative Cut, and we call it upon each and every one of the artists to come out and show the value of visual arts, because the basis of everything is actually drawing. you know
Yeah.
um Mr. Rens, please give us a brief overview of your platform, the text platform, and share your contacts, so that maybe if listeners want to engage you individually, they are able to do that.
Yes. So basically, the tax platform, it's a blog about taxes, whether it's taxes for individuals, businesses, anything to do about tax, we write about it. Currently, we have an ongoing transformation to now move from just writing, but also try audio and video. And yeah, we hopefully April or May we will start now going into video and audio, because not anyone prefers, everybody prefers reading,
To read.
because currently we just do articles. And so we want to cater for those who like maybe listening and those who like to watch, so that people can have options and consume our material. So we are available on Facebook, the text platform. They can follow us there to consume our material. And yeah, the YouTube is not active now because it's just short clips. But since we are moving now into audio and video, we'll then start accessing more material on from our YouTube account. But primarily we are on Facebook. And that's where they
Mr.
can
Rand.
engage us.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rand. Thank you very much for tonight. Thank you very much for your insights, and we hope to work with you as well. Good night.
Um, I'm available to help. Good night, and thank you for having me.
Good night. Guys, my nail plug, Inza Spa, has given us a new set. Please do check her out. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Creative Cut, filling the creator consumer gap.